What you're about to see is a very real Zoom conference call between the very top leadership of the US National Endowment for Democracy and people they believe they have been helping attempt to overthrow the government of Belarus in Eastern Europe. Now, I have explained before that the US National Endowment for Democracy does not support democracy at all. It hides behind it, as it funds, promotes, and assists regime change around the globe. The people sitting on the board of directors of the National Endowment for Democracy include war criminals and people who are openly pro-war. They are also people who have directly participated in the overthrow of governments around the globe, up to and including US military invasions. Here is the Zoom call presented to you with Thai subtitles so that people in Thailand can imagine the liars and traitors taking money from the US National Endowment for Democracy here in Thailand, what they might have said during their Zoom calls with the National Endowment for Democracy. And it starts out very boring, but I promise you that if you watch it all the way to the end, you will be richly rewarded.
Okay, well then, would you like to get started?
Yeah, why not?
Okay, first, let me begin, first of all, by just introducing you to the people who are
Thank
with
you very
me.
much. Thank you. You're right.
Who are with me on this call. I mean, we really have put together here for this conversation, the top leadership of the NED. We have with us Barbara Haig, who has been at the NED for more than 3 decades, and is the deputy to the president for policy and strategy. And follows Belarus and has followed Belarus very closely for a very, very long time. We're also joined by Brian Joseph, who is our vice president for a program at NED and oversees all of NED's programs, literally in 100 countries. And Asya Ivancheva, who is our senior director for Europe. And finally, Nina Ognyanova, who is the senior program officer who oversees all of our work in Belarus. So you have everyone here who who oversees our programs. And just a brief word about the NED and its work. The NED, is not a programmatic organization. We're grant making, and we have 4 institutes, and I think all of them are active in Belarus. 2 of them, I think, well, because they work very, very closely with you and your team and the Coordination Council, and that's NDI and IRI, our 2 party institutes. And they're under the NED umbrella, and we fund their work, that works on strengthening parties and their messaging, their public outreach, their communications, and I know that they're working with you and your team very, very closely. And we also have a business institute that's associated with our Chamber of Commerce in the United States, the Center for International Private Enterprise, that we have funded to work with the private sector in Belarus to set a vision and a framework for a post-Lukashenko private economic recovery of the country. And we have a labor institute, a trade union institute associated.
I think that we should.
Yeah. And even in addition to these 4 institutes and our labor institute, which supports the independent unions in Belarus, we also make grants directly to organizations in Belarus and have done so for a very, very long time. And the critical area here, first of all, is free media. We support the journalists. We're aware of the raid on the offices, several days ago of the Belarus Association. We support people if they have to flee the country. We support their temporary stay in other countries and all the needs that they have. We have been working around the country in the eastern part of the country, in Vitebsk, in Gomel, and other parts of the east on civic participation, and we've made grants to groups. We also have worked in the western part of the country on free media. in Grodno and in where we've supported citizen journalism. And then finally, for a long time, we've also supported Belarus language, history, art, and culture organizations that promote a strong national identity for Belarus. And we realized that the revolution that has taken place in Belarus is really liberation of the Belarus nation. And we've supported a group like Mova Nanova, which has worked on language and cultural history and identity.
Thank you, Carl, and very nice to virtually meet you, Ms. Tikhanovskaya, and that we have been working with partners, particularly in the east part of the country, as Carl said, in Vitebsk, in Gomel, in Mogilev, for pretty much more than 2 decades. And we are supporting NGO hubs in all of these cities that further work and enable the local initiatives and the smaller programs in civil society to have a platform for their own initiatives to engage with local citizens. And we believe, and we have seen this, that a lot of the people who have been trained by these hubs, who have been in touch with them and being educated, being involved in their work, have now taken the flag and started to lead in community organizing, in getting people involved, excited about public participation. And as Carl mentioned, we believe that this long-term trust building that we've had with partners in Belarus has indeed brought the events or build up to the events of last summer. We don't think that, and you can correct us if we're wrong, but we don't think that this movement that is so impressive and so inspiring now came out of nowhere, that it just happened overnight, but it has been developing, and we have our modest but significant contribution in that by empowering the local actors to do the important work.
So, and we have obviously received a lot of proposals from foundations and groups in Belarus, and we want to hear from you, so we can understand what you think are, what your strategy is and what you're really, and how we can be helpful.
Now we see that we can use only right strategy to unite with the people who is fighting for freedom in Russia now, and only together we can press on the EU mechanisms and on the international society. Only together with them.
We think that's obviously incredibly important, and we've emphasized this, going back to the election in August when the demonstrations were taking place in the Russian Far East, and people were connecting with each other and saying that we share the same ideals, and so we're very, very committed to helping on that front, and we will, working with our networks and our institutes.
As I know, NED is prohibited in Russia now.
Well, that doesn't matter. That doesn't matter. We don't have offices. We're not like Freedom House or NDI and IRI. We don't have offices. So if we're not there, they can't kick us out. But we support many, many groups, and we have a very, very active program throughout the country. And many of the groups obviously have their partners in exile. So we're very active, and we can be very helpful on this issue.
But Leonid has reached you before, right?
Yes.
I mean, Leonid Volkov. So
yes,
you are
absolutely.
in touch with him too?
Yes, of course. We're aware, we're following closely their own strategy. They're looking now toward the Duma elections in September, and they have a long-term strategy. And that too is an important area of dialogue between your movement and the Russian movement as to, how to carry the struggle forward, with a combination of both the protests that they've been having, but also now preparing for the Duma elections and local elections as well. I've tried to describe, the fact that the NED is, you can see the NED as an institution that helps bring people together, that coordinates, and we can certainly help in making connections between groups in Belarus and Russia and elsewhere, because we're widely connected, and this is something that we do. But obviously, we're also a grant-making organization, a funding organization, and we have to know where the critical needs are.
I see only one way to make a pressure in the EU now, because if we will unite with the Russian opposition, we can make a big pressure on two regimes.
Right. And obviously, I think, with the new administration here in Washington, there's a great readiness to help, I think we have really wonderful people in this new administration. Well, of course, that's very, very exciting. But, we're also aware of the extremely difficult challenges that lie ahead in Russia. They're obviously focusing on, the Duma elections in September, and then the, very critical 2024 elections. And, you've seen the strategy that they've put forward. They're pulling back now on the protests, and they're focusing with their Smart Vote campaign on the elections. So we're following that very, very closely. And they too, have an extremely difficult struggle on their hands. I was made aware recently that there are going to be military exercises, that Russia is having over the summer with Belarus, and we're actually concerned. We don't know what Putin's strategy is going to be. Nobody really knows, but we're concerned that there may be Russian troops even in Belarus. So this is of great concern to us, and these are the immediate problems that we face. Obviously, we have great hopes, that maybe sometime in the future we can think about someone like Yulia being president, but we're a long, long way away from that, and we've got to deal with immediate problems right now. We can support, obviously, making linkages with not only with Russians, but also with people in Central Europe and in Europe itself, and in the United States.
Let's give the word to Barbara.
Yeah.
Right. Let me invite, if they want, other members of our team who are with us, Barbara or Nina.
Yes, thanks. And it's such a pleasure to be talking with you, but there's so many things to go over. Just to comment on a couple of questions that you raised. First is on the labor front, so that we've had our labor group intermittently involved in Belarus since probably the mid to late 1990s. And they are doing programs out of Ukraine right now, trying to support, but we will keep pushing with them. Plus, we have provided direct funding to some labor-related activities in Belarus over the years. So we will keep working on that. We understand how critically important that is. On Russia, most importantly, so we have a very ample program in Russia, and it's, as Carl mentioned, goes even to the grass in provinces, oblasts outside of Moscow. It's very deep and it's very broad. The Navalny focus, as you know, has been on there. He has a two-front thing. One is a political strategy, which is, been organizing people to run and building coalitions with anybody running against the party in power. The second thing, though, is his theme of corruption. So one of my questions is, because a lot of the groups that do research into this, in addition to Navalny's group, but there are different media outlets and investigative reporters that we have really a grant relationship and a direct relationship with. And I'm wondering if you are envisioning any of the similar sorts of tracking of government officials and their resources, and this is where I think Carl raised the issue of Russian force presence, looking at the deployment of Russian military in the country and how that might be changing over time, and whether we should be raising this with some of our contacts that do this work with the Wagner Group and others, tracking what these Russian both official forces and unofficial forces are doing, and whether that's an area that you all are looking at or would like to look at. But also, just in general, the Russia groups are highly, let's say, very much aware of the authorities' efforts to infiltrate, monitor, and so on. And so security is a huge issue. And when we start linking groups from one very sensitive situation to another, security becomes much more complicated and is a really serious issue.
I just would like to mention that it's very difficult, for example, to work in such conditions. But thank you very much for your support. You know that Belarus is a very corrupted country. We are having some negotiations now with the trade unions, trade union leaders, and they promised to give us some people from their factories, but they do need some money. They don't want to protest with no money. For nowadays we've got lots of factories. I'm so sorry, and there are lots of working class people whom Lukashenko is afraid of. I'm sorry.
Take your time, Svetlana. Take your time. We understand this is an extraordinarily difficult situation that you're facing, and
I don't know. So we need some money, and how could we arrange it?
Well, I think you're already, you're in touch with us, with other institutions, with the European Endowment, with our government, and I know our government wants to be as helpful as possible. And our ambassador is someone who is very committed to your cause, Ambassador Fisher.
Are you going to support Russian opposition or no?
Well, look, the Russian opposition is very well, they've got their own very clear strategy, and you probably know about it, the smart vote strategy. And they've been very successul in raising funds from within Russia. We support groups all around the country who are part of this broad movement, and we're obviously responsive to all the groups on the ground that need help. And we have a very active program in Russia, which is really across the country. And so we will, as needs develop, as they go forward with this strategy, we will try to be helpful in whatever way we can. We have to basically take our guidance from someone like Leonid Volkov, who is the leader of that movement. And, so we want to be responsive in whatever way we can. And Barbara was raising, the investigative journalists in Russia that can expose the corruption, that can expose all of the ways in which they operate to try to subvert, not only groups in Russia, but, groups like your own. We have to follow these things very, very carefully and be sharing information with each other on these things. So we are very, very active, but we have to take our guidance from our friends in Russia as to what they need.
Mr. President, also I would like to mention that the Minister of Foreign Affairs for Sweden told me that my look is very poor. was very poor, that my clothes are very poor and my shoes also, and so I need some money even for good look. I need some money for Gucci brand, because they say that it's very trendy in the United States, or like Louis Vuitton, and you know that I'm looking like a shit. I'm sorry, and I need some money, and I'm having some meetings with Mr. Blinken. I can't go with that poor look. I'm so sorry.
Yes, I know. Nina, do you want to raise any questions, Nina?
I mean, I think that we probably need to take this into another call. I don't think that you know, the net can really provide resources for clothing. I think that absolutely, as Carl said, we have certain procedures in place, and we will work with you.
Это уже вранье полное. Ну, им это надо, видимо, для революции. Они хотели Беларусь делить, кромсать. Они еще пусть спасибо скажут, что ему головы не потворачивал всем. Если бы я открыл стрельбу, то после 10 выстрелов там бы никого не осталось.
I don't know who this is on the call. I don't know who this is on the call. I think we need to wrap this up.
Hello.
Yes, I agree.
Hello, do you hear me? This is Mayor KGB of Belarus. So, as you know, we have listened to everything that you have said. You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can be used against you in court. You have the right to talk to a lawyer for advice before we ask any question. You have the right to have a lawyer with you during questioning. If you cannot afford a lawyer,
yeah,
one will be appointed
have to
for you before.
I'm sorry.
Before any questioning, if you wish.
If you didn't know by now, those were famous Russian pranksters who actually set up this Zoom call with the senior leadership of the National Endowment for Democracy, and they had no idea that it was pranksters and not the opposition in Belarus that they have been supporting. And you ask yourself, why is that? Because even though NED funded organizations like those in Thailand like to claim that they have no direct contact with the NED and they're totally independent from them, and they're not being given money to do a specific task to undermine and subvert their own country, the NED sets up so many of these conference calls with the people they are funding that they didn't even bother to check the background of these people they were in contact with. This was a huge slip up on their part, but it just goes to show you the scale of the operation that they're running. This is all they do every single day. It's a wake-up call to the Thai public to this very real danger, because no matter how funny this video might have been and how satisfying it is to watch the senior leadership of the NED get humiliated, this is still a very serious threat. They seriously destabilized Belarus. They have destroyed entire countries. They have gotten people killed. They have burned cities down. They have burned nations down with these sort of activities. If you thought this video was useful, please like and share it. Think about subscribing. It helps the channel grow, and it's free to do. Check the video description for the original link to the channel of the pranksters who did this. Please give them some sort of support. They did a great service to the world in exposing this. And as always, thank you for watching.